Welcome into Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Thanks for being with us. My name is Madeline Burke, alongside the Super Bowl champion Sean O'Hara. The phone number here is 201-939-4513, or find us on Twitter at #GiantsChat. As a reminder, you can find the archive of this show and our entire podcast network on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and giants.com/podcasts. It is Wednesday. It is officially the start of practicing for week 7 as we turn the page into the next opponent. You got the Eagles coming to town, but Sean, we got to start with some big injury news, of course.
Yeah.
Giants left tackle Andrew Thomas is going to be out with Lisfranc injury, which is one I know that you're familiar with. We also know that the Giants will be starting with Azudu at left tackle today in practice, according to head coach Brian Dable, who is currently addressing the media. Illuminor, let's see, then John Schmelk has mentioned that they said that Illuminor could be at left tackle with Neal at right tackle, and they'll decide after Friday's practice what the best combo is for this offensive line, as well as Malik Neighbors, who's missed the last 2 games with a concussion, is, quote, feeling much better. Dable seemed optimistic, and he will be practicing today in a red no-contact jersey.
Wow, a lot to unpack right there.
Welcome to the show, friends.
How we doing? Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
I know, right?
I guess we got to start off with just the devastating news of Andrew Thomas being out for the year. It's devastating on many levels. I think number one, he's without a doubt the Giants' best offensive lineman. We noticed that he was not himself in the game on Sunday night against the Bengals, and we actually referenced it on the post-game show. Thank you for those of you that tuned in right after the game, MSG, lock and load. But we noticed that he wasn't himself. Or Giants YouTube channel. There you go.
We got multimedia.
Double plug. He was noticeably limping, and he was, it was almost like he was dragging his leg. And after he gave up a sack, he gave up 2 sacks to Trey Hendrickson, which is very uncharacteristic of him. You could just tell something was off. I didn't know if it was an ankle. When I heard it was a foot, my first thought was, I said, I hope it's not the Lisfranc. I experienced that myself, and it's a tough injury. Basically, the Lisfranc ligament, for those of you who don't know, and I'm not a doctor, I did stay in the Holiday Inn Express last night, but it's the ligament that holds your toes together, and not the end of the toes, but the metatarsals, I believe that is the medical term. It holds them together, and when you tear that, when you put your weight on your foot, those bones spread out, and it's painful. It's very painful.
And the toe bones go deep into the foot, not just little.
It's the metatarsals that basically go all the way up into that midfoot. So if you sprain it, you can, it will heal, and you don't have to miss time. You don't have to have surgery. But when you have to have surgery, when they deem it, and he flew down to Charlotte, met with Bob Anderson. When I had that injury, I did the same exact thing. Flew down to Bob Anderson. He's the specialist. He is. He's the king of the Lisfranc injury, and he determines whether or not you need to have surgery. If it's just a sprain, a partial tear, and it will heal with rest, then you go that route. If you go the surgery route, basically what they do is they're reattaching that ligament. In order to do that, they've got to get the bones back together. So the only way they do that is they put screws into your foot, inside of your foot, and draw those bones together. They reattach the ligament on top of the bones, and then that's kind of what secures it and gets you back into shape.
And then are the screws permanent, or do you get the screws removed?
The screws are supposed to come out. However, if you break one, which I actually had 3 screws in my foot, and one of them broke. So if it breaks, you know what, you're just, you're married to it. It's for life. But I will say this, it was very odd when the doctor showed me the x-ray, and I had 3 screws in my foot, and I'm looking at it. It looks like the doctor went to Home Depot and got 3 number 8 wood screws that you would put in your sheetrock, and just that's literally what it looked like. Obviously, it's not
DIY.
It's medical grade,
right.
Steel, so it won't rust or any of that stuff. But that's basically what you're looking at. So for Andrew Thomas, not just missing this year. I think if you're going to do that injury, you want it to happen sooner than later. I didn't end up having surgery on mine till January of that following season, and then it was still, it impacted me. You're non-weight bearing for a number of months, so this is going to be definitely a big recovery. But he can recover and he will come back from that. So I think that's encouraging. It's something that, especially as a lineman, you can absolutely come back from and get back to your former self. So long-term plan, Giants' best offensive lineman, they signed him to a huge contract just 2 years ago, I believe. So he will be back. But in his stead, you mentioned the question that I had as soon as I found out that news, like, okay, do you move two guys or do you move one guy?
Right.
So the quick thought is, well, who's our backup tackle? If this happened in the game, Josh Ezeudu, boom, he's right in there at left tackle. Now, Josh Ezeudu played some tackle in college. Mm-hmm. He made a start at tackle last year, I believe, or maybe even his rookie year. So he has some familiarity at tackle, and he is a pretty good tackle. So the easy solution is plug in Ezeudu at left tackle, and now you don't mess with the other four.
Right.
The other option, as you mentioned, is Jermaine Illuminor, who actually played left tackle for 2 games last year for the Raiders. He started at right tackle, but he filled in at left tackle when Colton Miller went down. So he can play left tackle as well, but now that involves 2 new people.
Right.
So now you move him to left, you would move Evan Neal in at right tackle, or if you felt like Ezeudu was better at right tackle and Illuminor was better at left tackle, you could put in Ezeudu at right and now at left. But you're moving 2 people as opposed to just 1. So that will definitely be a challenge. I think that one thing we can all agree on is the offensive line has been outstanding this year.
Well, and to that point, Sean, because as you mentioned, moving 2 people or 1 person, and last year we saw a lot of these guys plug and play in different positions. But this year, these 5 guys have played every down, every snap. That this offensive line has been consistent, something that the Giants haven't seen in quite some time. And you've had the same 5 players on the field together through 6 weeks. Now shaking that up and seeing not only just the fact that the consistency that is built in the run game and the passing game, but also the confidence that has instilled at times in the offense, having that security there.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think the Giants were the only offensive line in the NFL that had the entire offensive line had played every single snap going into last week. They all finished out the game. So that continuity is what breeds the confidence, and that chemistry is how you get better. And so it's night and day compared to what we went through last year with the offensive line and the constant changes. I think through the first 5 games, we had a different starting 5 every single week.
Right.
It was we were writing their names in pencil on our spotter charts. So it's definitely, that was a big factor for the success and why they were so consistent. So now the challenge is, you got to step up. And this is the NFL. Like, teams are dealing with this everywhere. Look, the Eagles are without Jordan Mailata, so somebody's going to have to step up for them. There's no excuses. You've got to step up and play. I think the good thing about this roster right now and what Joe Shane should be complimented on is the fact that he added guys to this depth and to this offensive line room. Last year, when guys went down, we were starting rookies. We had 3 rookies starting.
Pugh comes straight off the couch.
Yeah, Pugh was eating a bag of Doritos and some Taco Bell when he got the call, and he was like, "Oh man, I got to put on 20 pounds in a week," and come back, and he ended up starting.
Luckily for those Doritos.
Pugh
and Taco
actually
Bell.
ended up playing left tackle too.
Right,
so,
exactly.
I mean, he started at guard, I think, in the Buffalo game, and then he had to play left tackle. So last year, we don't want to get into that, but this year, you hope that somebody comes in, and that this is an opportunity for Josh Ezeudu. And look, if you're Josh Ezeudu, this is awesome. Like, I've been in that position. You're not a starter. Now somebody goes down. It's unfortunate, but I got a chance to step up and play. I really like Josh. I think he's got a great punch. Yeah. He's got great hands. He's not scared to throw his hands. The tough thing for him is just going to be, look, you're kind of getting thrown into the fire right now in week 7. Defensive guys have already kind of gotten into the rhythm. For him, is he in playing shape? Like, he's going to have to work through all that. But I think the other challenge with that is now, okay, if you're Brian Dable, what are we going to do? How are we going to help him out? Because Andrew Thomas, you could slide everybody right, and you could put Andrew Thomas solo, maybe give him a chip with the running back or a tight end, but you knew that he was going to get the job done, and you expected him to hold it down, and in one-on-ones he's going to be fine. So now you may have to get a little more creative. It's, hey, how do we help our left tackle out so we're not putting him on an island?
Well, and it's also not just an offensive line position, but the left tackle position, Daniel Jones's blind side, and that's going to affect, Daniel's performance as well a little bit. Yes, the offensive line as a whole, but when you have a new person protecting your blind side and you're developing that trust, that plays a factor.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I think, if you were to ask a quarterback, like, what position do you not want to lose if you had to pick one? I mean, the first answer would be center, obviously, because, they're the coolest.
Naturally.
And, no, that's because of the snap. Like, you don't want to have to, all right, now take a snap from somebody else, or, we've got this communication. So the center is huge. But from a player standpoint, that is the most vital. And that is the guy that you trust with your life, literally. So that will definitely take some adjustment. And I think also for Runyon, one of the things the Giants struggled with last year was passing off twists.
Mm-hmm.
And Runyon and Thomas being veterans and being able to work together, like that was not an issue. And that has not been an issue this season. That will be something to keep an eye on.
Right.
Because now as a new left tackle and you don't have a lot of reps with your guard, you're going to see a lot of twists.
The
Teams
twists and the stunts were really...
the TEs, the ETs, you're going to see a lot of that.
Absolutely. And of course, going against Philadelphia Eagles, a division rival. And, we've talked about this a little bit inside the building of all right, this is week 7, so it's not really like must win, but the Giants are, they're 0-2 so far in the division. You want to get a division win at some point if you're going to kind of continue that hope for the NFC East.
It's a must win.
It is, right?
I
mean, is it too much to say that at this point?
And you're at home.
And you've got the Eagles coming to town, a team that, yes, there's been struggle against. And it's going to be an emotional one, too, because, I can't believe we're almost 15 minutes into the show before we mention this, but of course, the return of Saquon Barkley, the first time we're going to see Saquon in person wearing green. And it's a lot like, hey, you know what? I know my ex is doing well. I see him on Instagram, but then I run into him in the club and I'm like, oh, this feels different.
Yeah, not running into him in the club. His table is right next to yours.
Right next to yours. And you're watching that
really?
bottle service come through and you're thinking like, you don't have to show me how well you're doing right now.
Do I throw some ice at him?
Yeah.
What do I do? Like, just sneak a little glare at him.
Yeah. I'm curious to the reception that he will get. I mean, of course, Giants fans had a lot of love for him. It's a little hard to see the player that, the jersey that was most repped in the stands going to a division rival.
Yeah.
And Saquon's coming off a game last week where he didn't have his best performance. So he's looking to bounce back.
Yeah. You know what? Boom. Like, guess what, Giants fan? This is not personal. Like, boom. Like, we're trying to beat him. He's the enemy right now. I love Saquon. Like, I've gotten to know Saquon throughout his career.
Don't you think the booze will get him jazzed, though?
I think it probably will, but
for me, I'm like, wait, you don't even notice them back if they don't do anything. I'm like, hey, man.
Look, there will be time, to pay your homage. But no, I mean, he's coming into MetLife. We need that energy, and you know what? You can't cheer him like that. That would go against your code. Like, you're Giants fans.
A man has to have a code.
I don't care if he's even on your fantasy team. You cannot cheer him in that stadium. Like, all right. And Saquon knows it. He gets it. And look, I think he's turned the page too. Like, he's an Eagle now. That was a previous life. He's on his second marriage. All right. He doesn't expect his previous wife to send him a Valentine's Day card. Like,
nope.
It's over. That's it. That's business and that's life. But I think more than that, like, I'm not worried about the fans' reaction. I'm not worried about what they do, what they say, or how they feel. We got to tackle this monster. Like, he's a beast. Like, that's the biggest part about this. Not just that he went to the hated Eagles and the division rival, and, Giants fans don't like Eagles fans and all of that. Like, we got to tackle this dude. He's a beast. We got to play him twice a year. Like, this is going to be a challenge, and not just in the run game. Like, he's a beast out in space. Like, this guy is a tough matchup. We've been on the other end of it for so many years. Ironically enough, just kind of reading through the stats, Saquon Barkley has more rushing yards in MetLife Stadium than any other player in the history of the Giants right now. So this stadium opened in 2010. Here we are 14 years later now. And Saquon, this is kind of his house. So a little bit of a homecoming from him from that standpoint. But this defense doesn't care. I don't think Bobby Okereke cares. I think he's ready to rock and roll, and he wants to punch that ball out. So challenge is definitely accepted by this defense, but you got to take them down, and I don't think anybody on the defense is worried about, that's 2-6 over there. So
no, I think if anything, they're like, now we can actually hit them. We've been practicing against them for years. It's like, all right, let me show them what I got. Like,
shoot your shot.
None of this thud tempo. I mean, we talk about the defense. We talked about this on the post game show as well, which for most of you who tuned in to MSG Network's The Giants YouTube channel saw. The Giants defense in week 6 did enough to get the win against Cincinnati Bengals. This is a defense that even shorthanded without Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari showed up well. This is, yes, a division matchup against the big bad Philadelphia Eagles, who have had the Giants number for the majority of the previous matchups. Giants got the win in week 18 last year. But you look at the matchup in specifics. Jalen Hurts, he's thrown 4 interceptions and has 5 fumbles through 5 games this season. Giants could benefit with, getting a turnover and creating a short field for the offense and putting them in that position. And if the Giants offense has Malik Neighbors back, has Devin Singletary back from the groin injury and the two-headed rushing monster of Singletary and Tyrone Tracy, it could be the Giants' run game that has the headlines coming out of Week 7.
Yeah, I think that would be great, and especially with Andrew Thomas out, like, don't throw the ball 50 times, right? You got Josh Azudu in there. Like, let's let him kind of work into the game. I think, we just saw the Jets on Monday night against the Bills kind of really lean on the run game. They were like, let's get back to the basics. I would hope that the Giants do that, and certainly having Singletary back would help that. But Tyrone Tracy has been phenomenal. I've been really impressed with his ability to just kind of get vertical. He's pressing the hole. He's really shifty, and he's got a great burst. So I think you got to get him more carries. I said it on the postgame show. I didn't think 17 was enough. Like, he should have 20 to 25 carries if he's the number one back and he's not splitting carries with Singletary. I have no. Here's the thing about the Neighbors thing. I feel like if Neighbors had played in that Cincinnati game, I think things would have been different. I think in crunch time, I think on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, I think there would have been more separation, and I think there would have been more conversions. So I'm not throwing any shade on anybody else, but you're a better offense with Neighbors. So if he's out there, I think that changes things. But the frank reality is this offense has got to step up. We've been saying it week in and week out, like, you have to score points. This is a scoring point league. Everybody's doing it.
Right.
The fact that they held the Bengals to 17 points, which was really 10 until Chase Brown ripped off that run, that is a win. That's a win at home. It has to be. All right, and you got to step up. The offense has to score points. Here we are, 2024, we're averaging 16 points a game. Last year, we averaged 15 points. Like, this was what we needed to change. This was supposed to be the emphasis. They started out right in training camp with the red zone offense, and they have not executed. It's not the plays. It's not the play calling. It's execution. We gotta put the ball out there. We gotta catch it. We gotta convert. Yes,
and doing so with consistency, because the difference between the execution in weeks 5 and 6 was glaring.
Right. And, you're playing the Eagles. Like, this is not the same offense that we have seen in the previous couple of years where Jalen Hurts was in the MVP conversation. They were lighting it up. Look, A.J. Brown had a monster game last week, and he came back with a vengeance. He and Devontae Smith are a heck of a 1-2 punch. But the offensive line is a little banged up. Jordan Mailata, we mentioned, is out with a hamstring injury. So that, changes things for them up front. Look, they're very physical. And if I'm Philly, if I'm Nick Sirianni, you want to go in the road game, you go away to MetLife, you run the ball. Like, you want to establish that physical dominance. So I expect them to come out and try to do that. I don't feel like Jalen Hurts is clicking right now. He's been a little bit of a funk, and it's not just this year. Like, the way they ended last year, it seemed like something was a little bit off. So I think for the Giants, let's keep it that way.
Yeah, ball security, and if the Giants can continue to apply pressure, I mean, leading the league in sacks, the amount of pressure they're getting on quarterbacks is incredible. Yeah,
that's been a pleasant surprise. Everybody, when we traded for Brian Burns, everybody wanted to know, what's his impact going to be? And, immediately you look at his production. I think he had 8 sacks in Carolina. Look, he was not rushing the passer in Carolina. He was trying to stop the run because they were behind every single game. But we're seeing the production from other people because of what he's doing as well. And, you mentioned Ojulari stepping up. Ojulari played outstanding. He was phenomenal. We're going to need another game from him because guess what? Lane Johnson hasn't given up a sack this decade. Yeah. He's a beast. He's the eliminator out there. So this is a really good offensive line. They're going to need their A game. Obviously, no Thibodeau, as you mentioned. Micah McFadden has been all over the field. I think for Bobby Okereke, this is a big tackling game. They've got some guys that are tough to bring down. I already mentioned Saquon. A.J. Brown is not easy to take down. Dallas Goedert is a stud down the middle. So this is definitely a formidable opponent for them, and the tackling has to be pure.
Absolutely. Got to get the tackling going. And Giants fans, make sure you go and subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. It features long-form interviews with Giants players, coaches, and front office staff past and present. Plus, hear from the best analysts covering Big Blue and the NFL. Search for Giants Huddle and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, or go to giants.com/podcast. And don't forget, if you are on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star positive review for all of our Giants podcasts. Let us know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill. Big Blue Kickoff Live rolls on a Wednesday. 201-939-4513 is the phone number. As we head to the phone lines, we've got Chris in North Carolina on the line. Chris, how's it going? You're on Big Blue Kickoff Live with Sean and Madeline.
Hey, how we doing, Madeline and Sean?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing well. Hey, first of all, you just stay true to yourself. You add spark to the show. Don't change who you are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Me or Sean? Both of us.
Don't ever change.
Don't ever change. Well, thank you. Thanks, Chris.
My first point is the Giants do not have the right kicker at Giant Stadium. Joseph cannot adjust to the wind. He's more of an indoor kicker.
Well, listen, I think any kicker would rather kick inside, especially MetLife. This is a tricky place. He's our kicker by default because Graham Gano's hurt. I think Graham, obviously is the one you want out there. But look, the Jets kicker, he double doinked. And this is his home stadium. He's been kicking here for a while. The Bills kicker, he missed a kick too. I think, the win was certainly more of a factor on Monday night, but. Look, I think Joseph has proven that he can make field goals. You got to give him a shot, but let's stop putting him out there. Let's stop kicking field goals. Let's score touchdowns.
Yeah, it's not an issue if you're getting 6 instead of 3.
So my question to Sean O'Hara, and this is for Sean O'Hara. This has nothing to do with you, Madeline.
Okay.
I have a theory of Daniel Jones, Eli Manning thing, because he is my all-time favorite quarterback. And if I walk up the stairs of my house, I have a photo of him and Sean O'Hara snapping the ball to each other.
Wow.
So my theory with Daniel Jones and Eli Manning is they're different. And here's what I see differently about both of them. So last year, Daniel Jones threw that pick six against the Seattle Seahawks, and Witherspoon ran it all the way back at Giant Stadium. And we were at a home game. And so now let's fast forward to this year, okay? And now we're playing home games, and we're not playing as well offensively, okay? But when he goes on the road, he's playing well. He looks off the safety. He looks off his tight end, goes to the screen, to his running back. So I believe, and 100% in my mind and in my heart, definitely in my heart, that he is feeling so much pressure from the Giants fans, and he's just not relaxed. And here's the big one for me, and it's really big for me. I believe that Eli Manning, he had Plaxico Burress. So he had a bigger receiver with wider radius to catch the ball, and he could do it over the shoulder. I think the Giants need to get a bigger receiver, and I wish they did not cut Allen Robinson because he's an experienced route runner, because I believe defensively, the teams know that they're going to Slayton. And Robinson is more of a slot receiver. He's underneath. And sometimes Daniel probably can't see him. But if he has a bigger receiver where he can maybe make that over-the-shoulder throw like he did with Plaxico Burress all the time, as Sean knows, in the Green Bay Packers championship game, he may fare a lot better at home. And overall, the team offensively may snap out of their woes. What do you think about that, Sean O'Hara?
I think it's a valid point. Look, no doubt about it. When we acquired Plaxico in 2005, it gave Eli a little extra security blanket. That was kind of his bank, right? He knew, look, I could throw this ball up and Plaxico is going to go up and get him. I used to tease Plaxico. I used to tell him he looked like Darius Miles. So every time he'd have a big catch, I'd kind of do that Darius Miles celebration. But, dude, he had this wingspan. And, Eli... Look, if Eli ever had a miss, he tended to miss high, right? But with Plaxico, that was never a miss. You really couldn't throw it too high for Plaxico. He could always get it. And even in the slants, the little fade stops, they had a good relationship, a good connection. So, yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Eli, his second year, gets Plaxico, right? And now is working with Plaxico, Amani Toomer. We had Shockey in at tight end. So he had some explosive guys. Malik Neighbors is really the most explosive receiver that Daniel Jones has ever played with. So Darius Slayton has been very good in times. He's been a little sporadic, but he's not the big target that you're talking about. You look kind of at the Jets and what they're doing. They already had Garrett Wilson. They had Lazard. They just traded for Devontae Adams. So Devontae Adams is kind of that same kind of mold, like a tall target, big target, number one guy. He's strictly outside. He hasn't had that. So I think he would love to have somebody like that in addition to a guy like Neighbors. But, no doubt not having Neighbors last Sunday impacted the offense and the rhythm. I think Daniel, the big thing for him, look, Eli didn't become Eli, and everybody didn't start loving Eli until we won the Super Bowl his fourth year, right? Even that same year, people were ready to throw Eli away. They thought he was a bust. They weren't sold on him. Then he won the Super Bowl, and everybody, is in love with Eli. Now, I think when Daniel Jones, he's been around a lot more dysfunction. With Eli, we had stability offensive line, stability, continuity. We had that number one big target. We had a great run game. Tiki Barber had 3 of the best statistical seasons by a running back in the history of the NFL those 3 years in 04, 05, and 06. So he had that to kind of lean on. And I think that's something that we would have a different perspective on Daniel Jones if he had those things. So it's not really apples to apples in my mind. But look, Daniel will tell you right now, I'm sure, if he were sitting right here, he's like, I can play better, I can do better, and I need to do better. And I think he will, and I think he can.
Thanks so much for the call, Chris. Appreciate you taking the time. 201-939-4513 is the phone number. And yeah, you know what? It's just one of those things that sometimes success brings out the best in situations too.
Yeah, I mean, look, when things are going well around you, it kind of becomes contagious.
Right.
And the opposite. I think it's very odd how unsuccessful he's been at home. Usually you talk about, man, playing at home. I love playing at home. MetLife's a different animal. Like, it's a tough place to play just from an element standpoint and the wind. Daniel Jones throws a tight spiral, so that shouldn't be a real issue for him. But, look, maybe there is something to him pressing, and you can't press. You can't force things. Certainly not at quarterback, but I'm sure there's part of him that really would love to just have a monster game. I think I flash back to the home game against the Colts 2 years ago when he lit it up. I mean, he threw for 2 touchdowns. He ran for 2 touchdowns. Like, he kind of put the team on his back in that game and at home. And, that was phenomenal. Like, people were rocking and rolling, and they were on, Team Danny Dimes. I think he needs one of those games, not just for the Giants to get a win, but I think for him, that would be a shot in the arm, a nice boost of confidence. And I think it would make his walk to the car after the game a little friendlier too.
Little friendlier. I mean, it's definitely gotten friendlier since week 1, so that's a positive right there.
Yeah.
We've got some more updates out of Brian Daboll's press conference, media availability, of course. John Schmelk chiming in saying that, Evan Neal's attitude has been excellent. He's improved the fundamentals that he's being taught out at right tackle. His mindset has been good. He's been a good teammate, doing everything he can to improve. This is Brian Daboll talking about Evan Neal via John Schmelk. And Schmelk, of course, out there at Mediaville's texting this in, so we have the latest for you. But also, more injury updates. Brian Burns, not at practice with a groin. Dexter Lawrence, not at practice with a hip. I mean, I get it. All those sexy Dexy dances, your hips need a little bit of rest.
They should be loose.
I know, right? Jamie Gillen, still not at practice. The punter missed last week's game. They brought in Matt Hawk, and he did a nice job. Devin Singletary will practice today after missing the last 2 games with a groin injury. So, of course, this point in the season, some of these are little nicks and bruises that you think, okay, are we being overly, cautious about, or are these, things to monitor? It is only Wednesday. It is the beginning of the practice week leading into Sunday's game. So we'll see how these injuries, but Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence, of course, some big ones on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, certainly something to keep an eye on. I think at this point in the season, people are already starting to have the conversation about load management, right? Mm-hmm. Like, all right, hey, these guys are playing how many snaps?
I mean, the NBA is starting soon. It's load management time.
Here we go. Like, all right, I think for Burns and for Dexter to not practice on a Wednesday, not alarming.
Right.
Hopefully by tomorrow they're back out there doing some things. The groin is that could just be soreness. He finished the game. I don't think that's anything to be alarmed about, but we'll see. This is a time of year where you kind of pick and choose like guys that you're going to take care of, and hey, I want this guy rested. And if skipping or sitting out of practice on Wednesday will give him that extra day to assure that he's 100% on Sunday, it's definitely worth it. For Gillum, I think that's tough. And we've kind of gone through this route before, like kicker. A little bit injured during the week. Like, how do we want to handle this? And I know Daboll took some heat for the Gano thing, which was different because, was it the same injury that happened in Washington to Gano when he blew his hammy? He was nursing a groin. So I know the hip bone's connected to the thigh bone.
And the knee bone.
But this feels different. Like if Gillum's hamstring is bothering him at all this week, I don't know that you go out there and ask him to gut it through. So,
well, especially for a punter, which relies on a lot of hamstring flexibility in either your kicking or your planting leg. And if you've got a guy like Matt Hawk who did a fine job last week in the punting game, you think, okay, maybe we ride that out rather than risking a similar situation, like you said, when a banged up Graham Gano was out there. And even if it's a different injury, these things kind of pop up. Speaking of Graham Gano, Daboll does say Gano is making progress, which is a positive. He's kind of nearing that return window. So we'll see if that is something that he does. But it looks like, and Dable has said too, that, much to the chagrin of Chris, our recent caller, Dable has said that, if Graham can't go, it will be Greg Joseph that they're sticking with.
Yeah, and look, I think Greg is capable.
Yeah.
Kickers have to have short memories. Look, we've seen Justin Tucker miss a lot of kicks this year already, which is very abnormal.
Right.
So you got to trust him, and you got to ask him to go out there and perform, and I think he will. The big thing, like I said, is let's ask him to kick extra points. Let's not ask him to kick 50-yard field goals. Like, that's
Right.
bad offense. Like, finish your drives, and you're not putting it all on your kicker.
It is kind of wild, though, that in today's NFL, a 50-yard field goal feels almost like a chip shot lately. I mean, 10 years ago, it was like, whoa, and now everyone's going for 60.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, man. I mean, the kicker, Aubrey down in Dallas, he's thumping it.
yeah.
Even the kicker for the Eagles coming in, Jake Elliott, he kicked a couple of big field goals against us. I remember his rookie year, I think he kicked a game winner, 57-yarder maybe. These kickers are definitely getting better. I will say this, MetLife is a different breed. Like,
Right.
the wind swirls. It's not, because of the nature of the stadium, the wind is never just one direction all day long.
Mm-hmm.
So it's constantly changing. When I played for the Cleveland Browns, it was an open stadium and you're on the lake and it's like, oh my gosh, it's windy, but it was a consistent wind. So you knew, like, all right, I'm either kicking into it or I'm kicking with it. And it's going to, you could predict it based on, and predict what quarter you wanted to be going which direction, because it was consistent. With MetLife, it can change in the middle of the quarter. So, you could start out and you feel like you've got the win, and then your next kick in the same quarter, it's a crosswind.
I'd be so curious to, and this is just a random thought about this, but when you design the stadium, like, if that was something that was anticipated or not, the wind, because of course it could be a gift and a curse. You think about, like, Miami, for example. The way that their stadium is built is such that the sunlight hits the opposing bench,
Yeah.
and the home bench is in the shade. So when those early season games when it's hot and you're in the direct sun as a visitor, but you're in the shade as the home team, there's that little competitive advantage there. The wind thing, it doesn't seem like it bodes well for either side, which does create just real football environment, though.
Yeah, I think part of that, and I've talked to a couple people about that, because there was a debate about should we put the roof on MetLife Stadium when we build it, and there was two factors in that. Obviously, the cost was going to be a heck of a lot more, but the elements, in the NFC East, that's kind of part of it. Like, hey, if you're going to come up here and play, it's like Buffalo. Like, Buffalo should put a dome on there, but, like, that's kind of an advantage for them. They practice in it, and guess what? Teams want to go play in Buffalo in December. Like, if you're Miami, you can't replicate that down in South Beach. Like, you can't replicate 15 degrees. So you think of it as a tool and as an asset, as long as you play well. And I think, look, there's games like Monday night, it didn't help the Jets.
Right.
You hope that it does win you some games, and those elements are kind of a part of the tradition of that game. But that's also how you build your team, like knowing you're going to have games.
Right.
The 1:00 games in November and December, like, you better be able to run the football, even if it's sunny out. Like, there's going to be days where you just can't throw the ball down the field because it's not letting you. I will say this: I doubt the kickers are on the forefront of the people making that decision. Like, hey, let's find a way to design the stadium so the kickers have an easier job. I don't think that came into the conversation at all.
The key is in the kicking game. Speaking of MetLife Stadium, Giants fans, take your fandom to the next level with a season ticket membership. Stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days. Memberships are now available for the 2024 season. And to learn more about all the exclusive member benefits, visit giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. 201-939-4513 is the phone number, or find us on Twitter at #GiantsChat. On a Wednesday edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live rolls on. Let's go back to the phone lines. Scott in Philly is on the line, calling from the Illadelph. Scott, you're on Big Blue Kickoff Live with Sean and Madeline.
Hi, Sean and Madeline. Happy Wednesday to you both.
Happy Wednesday.
Same to you.
Just a quick question. So, John Schmelk shared on Monday that, prior to this game, Daniel Jones' last 4 games were probably the best streak that he maybe had as a Giant. And I don't know if that's statistically true or not, but let's just say that it's pretty close to his 4 best games. It made me think that we're kind of like in Daniel Jones' purgatory, right? Because when he's really good, we're not dominant. The team's not dominant. We don't go up by 2 or 3 scores. We're competitive. We stay in the game. We're up by a score. We were at best over those 4 games. We were 2-2, and we're a blocked field goal from going into overtime with Seattle, and who knows what happens. So it just seems like when he's really good, the team still doesn't score enough, and so we're just competitive. We're not dominant. And unfortunately, the floor, when he's bad, well, that we saw what that looks like, against Minnesota and this week against Cincinnati, that we just can't score. So the question is, if that's the case, and I'm not expecting you to agree with me or disagree, but if that's the case, and we lose the next 2 games, and again, I'm not hoping we lose, I hope we win. When do we start to think about, okay, let's figure out what we do the rest of the season?
Yeah.
But at 2-6, I don't know how much of a season we have left.
Well, I mean, I think you're putting the cart before the horse here. We're 2-4. All right,
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about 2-6. It's always sunny in Philadelphia. All right, it's always sunny here too.
It's not easy being a Giant fan in Philly the last 8 years.
I
hear
commend you. I
I
commend
hear
you a lot for that. So, you're doing great, Scott.
Yeah, a lot of liquid courage down there, I'm sure, Scott. Listen, it's a great question, and I think, look, nobody wants to pontificate the future and, what that's going to be. Like, let's win this football game. Look, you're right. We could very easily be sitting at 4-2 right now. We could very easily be 3-3. That's just not the case. But I think Daniel Jones, when he's doing well, this offense looks good, but they just still have not been finishing drives, and so the red zone is always still the key. He's taking care of the football with the previous 4 games that John Schmelk, I'm sure, was referencing. He was on a good rhythm. That interception, that gaffe, against Cincinnati, that hurt so much because it was on the 14-yard line. That turnover cost us points, and those are things that you got to eliminate from the game. I think Daniel knows it, but. Look, I think you go on. You can go on a hot streak. I've been on teams where in 2007 we started out 0-2. We won 6 games in a row. So you've got to just get on a rhythm, get on the confidence. We mentioned the Malik Neighbors being out. Definitely impacted that offense. So I think hopefully if he's out, back out there on Sunday, he'll definitely help out Daniel Jones, and we'll see the best version of that. But Philly's always done a good job against us the last couple of years, getting pressure on the quarterback. So that's going to be a big part of the game. The thing that people are also forgetting, I know when they focus on Daniel Jones, they just talk about the passing aspect of it. He's been very effective in the run game. He has not had the splash plays that we've seen from him in the past. Ironically, he had that long run against Philly down into Link where he kind of tripped. It should have been a touchdown.
Yeah.
Yep.
He hasn't had those kind of splash plays, but he has been, efficient in the runs, getting first downs, and they have run him quite a bit. So there is that variable that he brings to the table. Look, the going back to your original question, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, maybe we're having a conversation about something totally different. But I know this, in the NFL, you don't make a decision until you have to.
Right.
Agree.
Right.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you calling in, Scott. Giants fan in Philly. It takes a lot of character to hold strong, and I respect it. I do. I respect it.
Yeah, just don't drink the water.
It is interesting, too. You mentioned Malik Neighbors coming back, and we don't know for sure if he will, but it is a positive sign that he's out at practice in the red no contact jersey today, Wednesday. He's getting back on the practice field, getting back into work. I mean, Neighbors still leads the Giants with 386 receiving yards this season, despite missing 2 games. He is such an integral part of this offense that he has played he has not played 2 games, and he's still leading the team in that regard. 3rd in the NFL with 96.5 receiving yards per game in 2024. An incredible addition to this offense if he does get back out here. An incredible boost for Daniel Jones, looking to break the streak of 5 losses at MetLife. I mean, it's something that you want to be able to win in front of your fans in person, not just on television. And also the ball security. Looking at this stat right here, the Giants are one of just 4 teams in the NFL with 1 or more giveaway in every game this season. And, not all of them, some fall on the quarterback, some fall on the running back. We saw Devin Singletary have a couple punched out. We saw, and these things when, a couple weeks ago, going into Seattle, when the Giants were shorthanded offensively, Brian Daboll said, you got to make the simple things easy. You got to do the simple things well. You got to kind of go back to the basics. And it sounds so fundamental, but really important.
Yeah, to use a basketball term, it's layups and free throws.
Right.
You got to make them. Like
Right.
you're watching, basketball. If you're not making free throws, and you should never miss free throws. Like you should never miss layups. That's kind of where the Giants have stubbed their toes. So, that make the routine plays look easy. Make the routine plays routine. And I think the Neighbors point that you hit on, it's amazing the impact that Malik Neighbors had on this offense right out of the gate. Like as a rookie coming into the league, and to have that explosive production right away, right, like out of the gates. There aren't a lot of rookies that have done that. There aren't a lot of receivers in history. Now, I think back to OBJ when he came to the Giants, he hurt his hamstring in training camp, so his immediate impact wasn't really felt until 4 weeks in. I think for Malik, coming off of that concussion injury, maybe he would have been ready to play last Sunday, but the fact that he took an extra week, I think he can come into this game, like, here we go, let's go, full tilt, 100%. And you know what? The good news is, like, he will feel fresh. He will feel energized. I have no doubt that he's going to be a big part of this offense, and they're continuing to find ways to get him the football. They're moving him around a lot when he's out there, but no doubt he changes this offense immensely because of his explosive ability, because of his accountability.
Right, absolutely. And you want to have that kind of dynamic offense. And, it's unfortunate at this point in the year, nobody's fully healthy. So even getting Malik back, getting Singletary back, losing Andrew Thomas, like we mentioned, for the season, there's going to be some changes to the way that this offense looks. But how can they execute? How can they kind of create that environment against a tough Philly team? And, I don't know. I mean, when you're looking at this matchup, Sean, if you're out there on the practice field today, day one, preparing for Philadelphia, where is your focus?
My focus right now offensively is first and second down.
Yeah.
Wednesday, the install, just to kind of break it down, when you come in on Wednesday, you go over, all right, you have your team install, offense breaks up, defense breaks up, and offensively you really focus on your first and second down plays. Here's kind of what we're going to do against their base defense. A lot of run game. You're working on the big-time runs, 3rd and 1. Your staple running plays, and then your play-action passing game. So Wednesday is a big work week. It's a physical practice. Usually that's your full padded practice. Sometimes you may have a Wednesday and Thursday as full pads, but knowing how the league is now, it's probably Wednesday's pads, Thursday is just uppers, Friday is all about speed. So Wednesday, that's a big emphasis. And I think if you can run the football on first and second down efficiently, 3 to 4 yards every carry, you're setting yourself up for a successful third down. And I think that's the key. So what really, you want to be physical. So those are the points of emphasis. Let's not beat ourselves. Like, no penalties on first down. You can't be 1st and 15, 2nd and 15. Like that's, you're asking for a disaster possession when you have self-inflicted wounds. No pre-snap penalties, false starts, none of that. I think the big thing for, what we talked about is Josh Ezeudu now at left tackle. All right, let's make sure that he knows what he's doing. Let's make sure that we are not asking him to do too much right out of the gate. Like, let's let him settle down and let him calm down, and let's figure out what he does best and how we can implement all of that. But those are the things you're thinking about Wednesday. Thursday, you start to morph into more third down, nickel defense, passing downs. You work your 2-minute offense. So you kind of break the game plan and the playbook up based on those work days.
Also, you mentioned Josh Ezeudu, of course, getting the first look at left tackle. Brian Dable did mention that they're going to be kind of doing a little bit of rotation throughout the week in practice. So Ezeudu at left tackle with the other 4 spots in place, or Illuminor over at left tackle, Evan Neal over at right tackle, and the other 3 spots still in place. So when you're kind of shaking things up in that offensive line unit throughout the week of practice, when you're installing and you're preparing for this game, how does that affect the way in which the team prepares? Are you doing these reps of like, okay, I'm going to do one with him at here and one with him at there, or how do they prepare? Because if you're getting your practice reps in on certain plays when you're at one position and then your game day you're at the other, of course professional football players got to be ready in that, but how does that affect your preparation?
You have limited reps. That's really the short answer. So if you have 10 plays in a 9-on-7 run period, you want Josh Ezeudu to get 6 of those plays, maybe even 7 of those plays. So, because they're each different runs. So, he may only get 3 or 4 reps the entire week with that run. So you're trying to give him as many reps as possible. But you also have to get the next guy ready. Because if something happens to Josh, who's your next left tackle? Is it somebody else? Are you bringing somebody else in off the bench? Are you moving Illuminor over and then Evan Neal is in? Or, how are you going to rotate all that? So those are things that they've been working on all season long. This is not the first time that they have said, hey, we have to have a plan B for every single player. What are we going to do if this guy goes down? So if you have 10 reps, usually, your first 6 or 7, your starters get it, and then you start sprinkling in, hey, let's move Illuminor over. I'm sure Illuminor has taken reps at left tackle, just in case of emergency as well. So he's rehearsing that. He knows the plays. I'm not concerned about that. They have been talking very glowingly about Evan Neal over the last couple of weeks in practice. So I think that's a good sign. But look, this is an opportunity for Evan Neal.
Yeah.
This is a chance for him to say, hey, look, I'm ready to rock and roll and let's go. So I'm sure, if I'm Carmen Brasillo, Josh Azudu may start at left tackle, but I'm going to rotate. I'm going to put somebody else in there at left tackle and somebody else in there. I'm going to start working Evan Neal in there. This gives you the chance to do that. And I think it's necessary because, the Giants have been lucky right now. Andrew Thomas, here we are, going into week 7, and this is the first time we've had to rotate somebody in. But you look across the league, like every team is doing this. Every team's the battle of attrition is going on all over the NFL. You've got to have guys that are ready to play. And you know what? I would rather rotate in some guys like Evan Neal, get them some reps during the game so that they're not just thrust into, hey, somebody goes down and it's 3rd and 9, and now I've got to go in there in the 4th quarter with the game on the line, and that's my first snap of the game.
Right. And, I'd imagine, too, with the news coming out relatively recently that this is a season-ending injury for Andrew Thomas, the Giants hold workouts pretty regularly for available players, so I wouldn't be surprised if there was another person brought in to add to the depth. The NFL trade deadline, of course, November 5th. I would be surprised if, anybody's trading away an offensive lineman at that point.
No, it's probably picking up somebody that may have been here before.
But it's more likely, like picking up somebody in like that scenario. Phillips. Yeah, November 5th, the trade deadline. What else is happening that day? Oh, yeah, make sure to register to vote. It's election day. But I think as well, when you look at the way, Brian Daboll has said that it's a possibility that Evan Neal is in at right and Illuminor is in at left. Evan Neal's played a lot of time on the left side, too. He was left guard and left tackle at Alabama. Is there a chance, if you are Carmen Brasillo, if you are Brian Daboll, you say, okay, maybe we put him in some spells at left tackle and keep the other part of the line in?
Yeah, I would give him some reps at it because you never know. It sounds to me like they've been working Evan exclusively at right tackle. I know people have been peppering them with, like, have you moved him to guard? Evan has been strictly practicing at right tackle. So because that's the case, I think I would be more inclined to put Evan at right tackle and move Illuminor over to left if that was the case in order to try to get him reps.
Yeah, that makes sense. Giants fans, the Giants official connected TV streaming app Giants TV brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV, and on the Giants mobile app. 201-939-4513 is the phone number as we head back to the phone lines. Scott in New Mexico. Scott, you're on Big Blue Kickoff Live with Sean and Madeline. How's it going?
Hi, how are you guys doing today?
Doing well.
I have a couple of different things. Some of them don't make any sense. I was sorry to learn that Thomas has a tarsal injury, which is Lisfranc. And I know Sean, you had mentioned you had it. It's also dependent upon how much or how heavy you are as to the length of time that you usually wait, but it's usually 12 to 14 months. I have a cousin who's at the University of Pennsylvania, and I called him to ask him how long, if he has surgery, how long it would take. So he would miss a number of games next year as well. So I'm sorry to hear that.
I disagree with that, but go ahead.
Okay.
That doesn't mean he's going to miss games next year. It's not a 12-month recovery. You're non-weight bearing for a while. It can't.
Right.
Yeah, in like catastrophic cases, maybe. But I know, speaking from experience, I was running.
Right.
I was running within 6 months of the surgery.
Okay, great. Well, I'm glad to hear it. As I said, I just wanted to get some more information from another doctor to find out how serious it was. But my question is this, or some of my questions are this. As you know, in the game that they just played, Daboll decided that he was going to go on 4th down. I think, was it 5 times? I may be wrong on that. But
yes, they were 3 of 5 on 4th down.
Right. The first one, he sort of got bailed out on because he went for it on his own 38 and didn't make it, and got bailed out by the defense because they were able to cause that fumble. Otherwise, that whole game could have turned around right there if Cincinnati had scored. And he did it multiple times. And my question that I have is something that I don't know if you can actually answer. Does he have faith in the offense as it stands now? Because if you're consistently doing it on fourth down, it indicates to me that he doesn't believe. And the score at the time, by the way, on that first fourth down was 7-0, so they were still in the game. But he felt he needed to do that multiple times. Does he have true faith in the offense that they can score? And the strange thing about it is I know they're towards the bottom in scoring, yet time of possession, I think they're fourth in the league, which is pretty damn good. So the two don't coincide in my mind. You know, if you're holding on to the ball for that long and you're fourth in the league, then it initiates to me that you should be scoring more. So where is the disconnect in your mind in regards to, and I think you addressed it a little bit, Sean, about they're sort of moving the ball but not getting into the end zone. But what can improve that? And does Dable believe in this offense with Daniel Jones at the helm? And I'm a big Daniel Jones supporter.
Well, and Scott, Sean, I mean, you would, I feel like, attest to this too. Like, going forward on fourth down is putting faith in the offense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think, I'm counterintuitive with that. Like, the fact that they're telling, if I'm a player and you're saying, hey, I trust you to get this first down, it's because I'm expecting us to go down and score. You know, I'm not going to settle for the field goal. Like, I have faith in you. I think it's also a compliment to the defense that, you know what, I'm willing to go for it even and put you out there on a short field because I feel like my defense can handle that. So I don't think confidence is an issue with Dable. And guess what? His first game as a head coach of the New York Giants, he went for 2 down on the road at Tennessee, and we won a football game.
I remember.
This is our guy. Like, this is who he is. He's not going to change, nor should he. Because if you trust your guys and you have a good enough players, you're going to go for it. I think what he's trying to do is, look, I'm going for it because we need points. Like, I can't play conservative and just punt the ball every time and then just expect my defense. Like, no, we've got to keep the ball and we've got to score. Now, to your point about the time of possession, don't mistake activity for achievement, right?
Okay.
Just because you're holding on to the ball, like like that time of possession, we reference it sometimes, like, wow, you did have the ball a long time. You should have more points, 100%. But that's the problem right now with the offense is when you get down to the 20-yard line, that's when you have to be better. That has to be your best version of play, your best execution. We've been awful. We've been sloppy. Like, it's a brain fart here. It's a drop pass here. It's an errant throw here. It's we didn't pick this guy up. It's a missed cut. So everybody contributes to this. And, look, if everybody has a my bad, that's what ends up happening. And then guess what? When your kicker misses a field goal, or you're down in Washington and your kicker is hurt, and then your backup kicker misses an extra point, now you're like, all right, we're in go for it mode. I will say this. If you have a coach that you're going for it on fourth down, it makes you more aggressive offensively because now you have that extra down. So on third down, I don't feel like I've got to get, at 3rd and 12, 3rd and 14, I don't have to get 14 yards. Maybe I got to get 10 or 12 because we are going to go for it on fourth down. So it gives you almost an extra play. I don't think there's an issue with it. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't in the NFL if you're a coach on fourth down. And everybody's going to go to analytics. Like, look, when you sit down at the blackjack table, you hit on 16. That's what you do, all right? If you stand, somebody's going to punch you. So, like, you got to do what you got to do. And the key is if your coach gives you the confidence, like, hey, we're going for this thing, get the damn first down. Like, get it.
Right.
You know, if I call it and like we ran the ball to Tyron Tracy, got stuffed. Guess what? You're running off the field. That's your bad. Like, if I'm the coach, I'm looking at it like, I gave you a chance to get the first down. Get it done. Like, that's on you.
Yeah. If someone gives you that opportunity and you're saying, wow, okay, you really do believe in me, let me level up and execute. And that's what it showed last, Dable's first year. Right. This team, I mean, it inspired the team. And Dable's always been an aggressive play caller, like you said. And he said, hey, the players are the ones on the field. I want to put my trust and my confidence in them to execute accordingly.
If it's 4th and 1 and like we, as an offensive line, see the punter coming out and a coach is like not giving us a shot, I'm running off and I'm like, all right, he doesn't think we can get it.
Right. It's like we could do it. What are you talking about? Yeah.
Like, I'm running off the field. Like, you didn't think we can get that? We can get that. So,
as I said, I only question it because he was doing it on his own 38.
No, you only question it because we lost. If we had won, you would be like, I love it. Great. That's the truth, man. That's the truth. All right.
True.
You only question it because we lost.
You're talking to a degenerate gambler. So.
Is there another kind?
Well, yeah, there is another kind, but I play the odds. And doing it from your own 38-yard line is not good odds. But I understand your point. The other question I had, execution, as you said, is everything. In the Seattle game, towards the end, Geno Smith did the exact same thing that Burrow did. I think he ran for 35 or 40 yards to get the field goal position, and luckily Simmons blocked the field goal. Well, the game, who knows what that game would have been like. And then, obviously, Burrow runs for a touchdown. So defensively, are the Giants learning from their mistakes? In other words, continuity and play calling are one thing, but making the same mistake is not play calling. There's a disconnect for me if the same play is being repeated week after week after week. And in that case, 2 games, 2 exact same circumstances. Defenses might have been set up a little differently, but nobody tackled Geno Smith and nobody tackled Burrow. So do you think it's something that they have to work on in regards to, as everybody says, execution? Do they learn from their mistakes? Those are the kinds of things that are upsetting to me. And believe it or not, I think this division could potentially be won by a team that has a losing record, because the teams, if Washington comes back to the fold a little bit, you could have a team that's, has a losing record and still wins the division, because Dallas and Philadelphia are not playing very good football.
All right, yeah,
So,
I'm not going to extrapolate over that stuff, but I will answer your question about look, are they working on that? Absolutely. You don't think Shane Bowen's talking about gap integrity and rushing lanes?
Right,
That play
exactly.
against Joe Burrow, look, nobody expected the snow leopard to run for 42 yards and a touchdown. It was the longest running by a quarterback in Cincinnati Bengals history. The whole key with that, though, is they ran a twist game, right? It was an overload. So visualize this. If you're the quarterback and you're looking at the Giants defense, they had 3 guys left of the center, 1 guy on the right side. They're running a twist. The looper from that group of 3 was supposed to come all the way around the guard, and he's the contain guy. He never got there. So that's why there was that huge running lane. He got stopped, he got blocked, and never got to his gap integrity. So that's, sometimes what happens. It's just one guy that can get out of there.
And it's similar to what happened in
And literally
Seattle
everybody
as well.
was on that side of the field. Like, that was kind of
Right.
a unicorn play. I guarantee you they're going over it. It's like, look, if we ever get caught in this formation again defensively, like, either call the twist off, or if you're the looper, like, you've got to get in your spot. You have to get home. That's execution. Like, we could sit here and blame Shane Bowen for calling that play, but if that guy had gotten to his proper gap, Joe
Right.
Burrow wouldn't have been able to sneak out to the right side, and maybe one of those guys would have come over there. But it's also just awareness. Like, hey, like, we have to, Joe Burrow made a play. Like, it happens.
Right.
I don't think it's something that is going to be a recurring theme that we're going to see, quarterbacks running all over the place. Although, now this week we're playing Jalen Hurts,
You're
who
gonna play
does
against Jalen
run.
Hurts,
So
right.
you've got a totally different mindset when it's Jalen Hurts.
Right.
Right. Well, I appreciate the answers, guys. Thanks
All right,
again.
thank you.
Thanks so much for the call,
and good luck
Scott.
to you.
Playing the odds, Scott. I appreciate it.
He's the one. He's the only guy that's playing the odds.
No,
Like
only
that.
one. Only one. I respect that. It is interesting though too, because we talked about this a bit on our post game show. Another plug for the post game show. But when the coverage, like you said, gets busted like that, it just creates that lane for an anomaly of a play, and it just ended up being a 47-yard touchdown for the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those plays where you're like, you got to be kidding me. Now, I will say this. Like, 3rd and long has kind of been our nemesis right now.
Yeah.
So, to Scott's point, like, hey, you know what? Like, we have struggled to get off the field. Like, there's 3rd and 16, and they get a first down, and it's like, oh, that's just like a heartbreaker. Like, you get them in 3rd and 16,
Yeah.
get the stop, make the tackle, get off the field. Like, that's the way it's supposed to work. And that was not a 1-week thing. Like, that's something that, 3rd and long has been an issue. You got to fix it. You got to find a way, whether it's less twisting, more blitzing, like whatever the case may be. You go back and you look and you analyze that. Now here we are going into week 7. So you have 6 weeks of your own self-scout plays and formations and downs and distances to go back and look and say, hey, are we being predictable? Or
Right.
like, can people tell what we're going to be in coverage-wise, scheme-wise, blitz-wise?
Well, we'll see how it all pans out. Week 7, the Giants are back at MetLife Stadium hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. Saquon's return.
Here we go. I mean, I'm just visualizing you and me in the post-game show,
Yep.
just like, celebrating a huge win.
Just manifesting it.
It's got a 1:00 game, so
Yep.
hopefully it'll be sunny. It'll be nice and warm. I think everybody needs this. Like, we
Yeah.
need this. We need you. We need you to show up. I will say this. I know we're coming up against the clock here, but thank you to all the Giants fans that came out on Sunday for Sunday Night Football.
That was a great environment.
It was a great scene. I know that they handed out the bands, the light bands. That was kind of cool to look up there and see that. But they honored the Super Bowl 42 and 46 teams. There were a bunch of players that were there for that. And I just want to commend you because, we asked you to stay in your seats to witness that and to be a part of that. And a lot of you did. And it was really touching. I know there were a lot of players that I talked to that just, they were glowing after that. It was really cool for them to be down there and kind of have a moment. It was a little bit of a time capsule that we kind of opened up and got to relive. So thank you for doing that, for being a part of it. I know it meant a lot to the players, to the team. So we appreciate you guys, and that you guys are the reason why we played. So it was great to have you guys there supporting. Now let's hope that we can do that with the post-game show.
There we go. As much as we love celebrating the 07 and 11 Super Bowl teams,
let's celebrate this
team, and let's celebrate with a win on Sunday. And Giants fans, if you're out there, come by section 144 to check out Sean and I on the post-game show. Hopefully we'll be in good mood after a win.
The good news is I don't think we're honoring anybody at halftime.
Exactly.
So, all right, we got that out of the system. You guys can go get your beer at halftime so you're nice and primed and ready to roll.
Corgis at halftime.
Oh, according to John Schmel coming in with breaking news here on Big Blue Kickoff Live, we will have corgis at halftime.
All right.
Did you know that a corgi's butt actually has a bubble in it, so their butts float?
They look like loaves of bread.
They look like loaves of bread, but their butts actually are buoyant. So things you learn on Big Blue Kickoff Live on a Wednesday. Corgis' butts float. You'll see those booties in action as corgis take the field at halftime on Sunday. But hopefully they won't be the only ones running through the end zone. Maybe Devin Singletary will be back. Tyrone Tracy's been playing quite well. Who knows?
I'll be getting a beer at halftime.
Cold Beer Sunday. That's what it is. Well, that's a wrap on our show today as we leave you on the high note. But before we leave, I just want to wish a very happy birthday to Brandon London, the self-proclaimed Him C. Turns the big 4-0 today. Lordy, Brandon London's turning 40, so happy birthday, BL. And let's get the dub on Sunday.
Yeah, let's celebrate Brandon London's birthday with 40s on Sunday.
There you go. Hey, 40s for all. All right, that's a wrap for our show. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. BBKL is a part of the Giants podcast platforms everywhere and giants.com/podcast. For Sean O'Hara and Madeline Burke, we'll see you next time.